Hi, I'm Granny, and we're going down the rabbit hole of the brain, episode 2. Please remember, I'm not a doctor, I'm just a very curious granny. Attitudes toward the brain have changed over the years. Are we any closer to understanding how personalities develop? Is consciousness or conscious awareness a way we can define a person or their personality? When the Egyptians first began mummifying bodies, they would remove the brain, thinking that the brain was just stuffing to keep the shape of the skull. The Egyptian Book of the Dead believed the heart was the home of emotions and the soul, showing how attitudes and theories have changed over the years. Around 1500 BC, Egyptian mummification practices changed. The change expressed attitudes by valuing and preserving the brain. Roman physician Galen, around 170 AD, suggested that the brain's 4 ventricles, or fluid-filled cavities, were the seat of complex thought, determined personality, and bodily functions. This was the first suggestion that the brain was where our memory, personality, and thinking reside. The human brain has over 100 billion neurons and over 100 trillion synaptic connections. According to scientists, there are more neurons in your brain than stars in the Milky Way. A baby's brain has 2 quadrillion synaptic connections. An adult has about 1 quadrillion. Adults use about 20% of their fuel intake for their brain function. A baby uses 60%. So a brief review of the parts of the brain. Just make sure this is really brief. The cerebrum, which is the front of the brain, is the largest part of the brain, starts and coordinates movement and regulates temperature, enables speech, judgment, thinking, reasoning, problem-solving, emotions, learning, function that relate to vision, hearing, touch, and senses, and other senses. Remember when we went down the rabbit hole of the circadian rhythm and how light entering the eyes triggers release of hormones for waking up or responding to danger or going to sleep? It's a very complicated process, but all right. Part of the cerebrum is the cerebral cortex, which is divided into 2 halves or hemispheres. The 2 halves communicate with each other through a large C-shaped structure of white matter and nerve pathways. It's called the corpus callosum. And it is in the center of the cerebrum, allowing communication between the 2 hemispheres of the brain. There are cases of people having severe seizures resulting in having parts or an entire hemisphere of their brain removed. This has taught surgeons that the younger a patient is, the greater their recovery is. Because remember, the baby's brain has more synaptic connections than adults. The right hemisphere of the cerebral cortex controls the left side of the body, and the left half controls the right side of the body. The cerebellum, or little brain, is a fist-sized portion of the brain located at the back of the head, below the temporal and occipital lobes, and above the brainstem. It also has 2 hemispheres. The outer portion contains neurons, and the inner area communicates with the cerebral cortex. Its function is to coordinate voluntary muscle movements and to maintain posture and balance, equilibrium, New studies are exploring the cerebellum's roles in thought, emotions, social behavior, as well as possible involvement in addiction, autism, and schizophrenia. The brainstem, or what is referred to as the middle brain, connects the cerebrum with the spinal cord. The brainstem includes the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla. These structures enable the brain to function properly. There are over 1 million brain injuries in a year. That is really sad. In many cases, the head injury causes unconsciousness. Scientists are getting better at understanding our brains because of injuries and at diagnosing injuries. There are many cases of unconsciousness and consciousness involving this. One scientist defined personality as how all the pieces of consciousness awareness combines to create a personality. How we think, how we perceive information from our experiences, how our memory stores as a construction of our brain. Our brain takes millions of pieces of sensory information woven together by our memory to create a conscious experience. We are a composition of our environment, our family, friends, education, and also how we perceive this information. I know of a situation where a baby died the day before his older brother had been playing with him. It was a bizarre and unexplainable death, even after the autopsy. I know a lot of the details that I'm not including because it is such a hard experience for anybody involved. So even after the autopsies, the death was hard to explain. And parents having to explain to the older children this unexplained death was a huge challenge. Many months later, the older brother started crying to his mother, confessing to killing his brother. Had he killed his brother? No. But he inaccurately concluded that by tickling his brother's tummy must have caused his death. How many of us have made similar inaccurate conclusions from experiences? Have you ever walked into a room and assumed that the people in a group over there were talking about you, or a person staring at us doesn't like the way we look, the color of our eyes, our skin, our hair, the clothes we were wearing? Has anybody judged you by the look on your face thinking that you didn't like them? That's happened to me, and I wasn't even thinking about them. I was just concentrating on something else. So assumptions we all make, and most of the time I think we do it inaccurately. So how accurate are our memories? There have been times I would have bet my life that something happened in a particular way that I remembered, only to be proven wrong. Eric Kandel, and Kandel is spelled Kandel, an Austrian-born American medical doctor who won the Nobel Prize in 2000 for physiology for his research on physiological basis of memory storage in neurons. He shared the prize with Arvid Carson and Paul Greengard, and we're going to go down that rabbit hole and how interesting it is, the process that our brain takes to create a memory. So next time, we will learn about our brains and memory. Thank you for joining.